progress.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 City of Cupertino Planning Commission meeting. In accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order number 2920, this will be a teleconference meeting without a physical location to help stop the spread of COVID-19. And members of the public wishing to observe the meeting may do so in one of the following ways: tune to Comcast Channel 26 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99 on TV, or the meeting is streamed live on the city's website, cupertino.org/YouTube or /webcast. And members of the public wishing to comment on an item on the agenda may do so in the following ways: email comments by 5 o'clock today, which is too late now. And these email comments will be received by the commission members before the meeting and posted on the city's website. I think that's all we actually need to read here. Can we have the roll call vote, please? I am not sure.
Matipatla?
Here.
Commissioner Saxena?
Here.
Vice Chair Scharf?
Here.
Chair Wong and Commissioner Kapil are absent today?
No, I'm present.
Oh,
Oh, okay. We have 4 then. That's wonderful. Okay. Our first item is the approval of the draft minutes of June 22nd, 2021, and a link to them is in the agenda. Hopefully everyone has looked at those. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So I was absent in that meeting, so I don't know if I can do anything.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, let's just look them over. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2021. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I seconded it.
Okay, great. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Matipatla?
I'll abstain because I was not there in that meeting.
Commissioner Saxena?
I think I also was not there on that meeting.
Commissioner Kapil?
Yes.
Vice Chair Scharf?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're approved. We'll have to postpone this to the next meeting when Chairman Wong is back and we can have a majority. So that's fine. We'll just postpone this until our next Planning Commission meeting. So that does not carry. We are on to the oral communications. Do we have any? Let me switch to participants and to attendees. Yes, we have one member of the public that wishes to comment. Jennifer Griffin, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Scharf.
Yeah, be careful.
Yes, my tablet is working now. It still scares me sometimes. But yes, it's good to see you all. I just wanted to, now, City Council just had their first hybrid meeting, which was over the TV with masks. And it was a little difficult to understand some of the people. But and I think it may be better once they go into council chambers, is the Planning Commission going to have a hybrid? Are you guys going to be back in chambers at some point, or are you still going to be doing Zoom for a while? Has anybody come up with the agenda for that? The other, I'll just put in a plug that SB 9, SB 10, and AB 1401 are horrible bills. They're unconstitutional, and I sure hope that they don't vote them in. I hope that the governor does not sign them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. I don't know about going back to in-person meetings. I mean, at first I thought it would be soon, and now with the Delta variant and the return of masking. I kind of doubt it, but that's not my decision. That's something I think the city manager and staff would decide. Seeing no other hands raised from attendees, we will move on. Were there any written communications today?
No.
This meeting. Very good. Okay, so we are on to the only other item on the agenda. This is the public hearing. Consider recommending approval of a vesting tentative map to replace a previous approved vesting tentative map, TM 2018-03, for the Westport Cupertino Development Project to create a separate parcel for the age-restricted senior below market rate housing. City approval will be a vesting tentative map application, number TM 2021-002, applicant KT Urban, Mark Tersini, location 21267 Stevens Creek Boulevard, assessor parcel number 326-27042-043. Let me say we've all on the Planning Commission received the confidential advice from the attorneys. This was a postponed item from the previous meeting, and we wanted to get the input from the outside attorney on whether this was an acceptable thing to do. And I think we've all hopefully read that, and we can have the staff report now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Scharf, and to the Planning Commissioners who can make it tonight. I really appreciate your efforts being here. Again, my name is John Martier. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department, and I've been the project planner for this since its inception. I presented this also on June 22nd as well. So I do have a presentation. A lot of it's just kind of regurgitating what we said last time, because it's almost been a month, just to kind of jog the memory of those in attendance as well as those at home. So let me just share my screen. Okay, let me just confirm everyone can see that correct. Okay, so as Vice Chair Scharf had indicated, this is a tentative map, TM 2021-002 for the Westport development located 21267 Stevens Creek Boulevard. Again, the subject is consider recommending approval of a vesting tentative map to replace a previously approved vesting tentative map, TM 2018-03, for the Westport Cupertino Development Project to create a separate parcel for the age-restricted senior below market rate building. City approval would be a vesting tentative map. And again, on June 22nd of this year, the Planning Commission originally heard the application. However, it was moved 3-0 with Saxena Maripatla absent, that the item shall be postponed to a later date for further clarification on a couple points. The first one being the legal review on the conformance of the parcelization of Building 2 with the general plan, as well as justifying its decoupling from Parcel B. And two, removing the requirement for a developer to provide a Class 4 bike lane on the southern side of Stevens Creek Boulevard adjacent to De Anza College, which the staff report went into greater detail. And we've also attached 3 traffic studies submitted to staff, which were peer reviewed by our consultant as well throughout the project, including the first 2, the earlier 2, which were included in the project's environmental impact report. So again, really quick, the project locations is a mix of uses surrounding it. You have higher densities in the north, city park spaces to the east, De Anza College to the south, and Highway 85 to the west. It's within the heart of the specific plan area, and within that is part of the Oaks Gateway. And again, the project site, which isn't changing the scope, you have Building 1, which is the 131 unit senior mixed use and 27 memory care rooms. Building 2, 48 unit BMR senior mixed use, which is the building that is proposed to be parcelized out. And then you have the 70 townhome condominiums as well as 18 row house condominiums on the central and western edges of the development. again, the two commercial buildings, the two residential commercial buildings, which you saw, will refer to the 48 unit BMR building as throughout this presentation. Most likely it's building 2. Originally, the vesting tentative map application, which was approved in August 18th by council in 2020, was a vesting tentative map to divide the property into 2 separate parcels. Parcel A on the western edge, which is 4.7 acres, and parcel B on the eastern edge, which is 3.1 acres. Included on this vesting tentative map were Stevens Creek Boulevard upgrades to include detached class 4 bike lanes and other improvements as well. As you can see, parcel A is on the western edge, and parcel B, outlined in red, is the one that will be in question and to be divided out to accommodate the building 2. So the proposed vesting tentative map, as discussed, will be resulting in 3 parcels. Parcel A, not to be changed, 4.7 acres, which would be, again, the townhome row houses. Parcel B, the 2.5 acres, which would be the assisted living facility, essentially building 1. And parcel C, which would be the resultant of carving out of parcel B to be 0.6 acres and encompass just building 2. Again, the intent of this was to meet permitting construction timelines of the state of California tax credit program. And as we discussed in the staff report, this was a requirement that the tax credit, and we'll discuss a little bit later, but the tax credit program requires a separate parcelization or distinct ownership of that building to receive the monies. And so this is what the resultant parcelization would look like, with the new parcel C carved out of parcel B and outlined in blue. And then the reason for the parcelization as proposed by the applicant was that the BMR projects rely on tax credits must be owned by single asset entities, as discussed prior. And just to let you know that the applicant is here to discuss this further, as well as their developer for these units is here to answer any questions about the tax credit program as well, if needed. Further, condition 3, 1 of the development permit resolution did discuss that at a certain point, it was anticipated that this building would be parcelized out when it states that the developer has transferred, that the triggers for finaling this project would be that the developer has transferred this parcel on which the senior BMR housing will be constructed to an affordable housing developer or its affiliate. So it was anticipated within the resolution and the approval by council that this would be parcelized at a certain point in the future if it was to be developed by a separate entity. So again, the vesting tentative map was found to be in conformance with the general plan in 2018. I'm sorry, August 18, 2020, because it was the general plan did permit up to 30 dwelling units an acre, and it qualified for a density bonus, which means it could go above that density at that point with the density bonus. And the density nor the amount of dwelling units on site and the density is not proposed to be changed at all with this revision, this modification rather. It is consistent with the intent of the general plan for this site for a high density mixed use development. And again, the current proposal does not propose any revisions to the approved project. Again, proposed vesting tentative map, the previous approval required installation. So to talk about why the class 4 bike lane is being removed from the vesting tentative map, why it was there originally was because public works staff had looked at this and said, well, we will, and again, we have public works staff in attendance as well that I can probably better describe this than I can, that the equivalent TIF fee that they would have had to pay would have been the work to be done to put the class 4 bike lane on the southern side of Stevens Creek Boulevard. In looking at the city's policy and generating the TIF, which again is a transportation impact fee, is really not based on square footage of the development, but rather is based on any net new traffic that's a result of the development. And with those three traffic impact studies that were submitted to the city and peer reviewed by both our consultant and city staff, it was found that the development would actually have no new net traffic impacts from what would be existing there based on an 85% capacity of the site. Therefore, no TIF would be required. And if no TIF would be required, that means that the city cannot require the improvements to be done on the southern end of Stevens Creek Boulevard. Again, we have public works staff to answer any questions regarding that. And again, the applicant is still required to coordinate with Caltrans for the design of the improvements on the northern side of Stevens Creek Boulevard adjacent to the project site, which is still required as part of this application. Again, an initial study was prepared and final, as well as a final EIR was certified by by council in August of last year. The proposed changes to the project would not have any new or substantially more severe significant environmental impacts. The creation of a new lot and decision not to construct certain improvements would not have an adverse physical effect on the environment. Let's see, I believe we still have to do the revision to the draft resolution. And correct me if I'm wrong, Seth, this part was to the resolution itself, correct? This revision?
This has been included in the new version, so this is
okay. Okay, thank you. And so the outreach was to the ordinance requirements, and the recommended action is that staff recommends that the Planning Commission consider the evidence presented and determine whether the project can be recommended for approval in accordance with the following draft resolution, including a revision as previously noted by staff. Next step is the City Council's decision on August 17, 2021 will be final unless could reconsider within 10 days of the decision. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with this, which is why we postponed it and didn't deny it. We just wanted to get the outside counsel to discuss this. I guess I'm a little disappointed that originally when this was approved that the property owner and the planning department didn't know that it had to be a separate parcel for the affordable housing. Then we wouldn't have had to go through all this later on. Hopefully in the future, no one will miss that. So everything will go a little smoother and the projects can move forward expeditiously. So do any of my other planning commissioners have any input before we move to public comment? I see one hand up.
Do we get to talk about this later on?
Right. Before we make, we're going to make a motion later on, and then everyone will get a chance
Okay.
to talk about it. Let's go to public comment now, and then we can bring it back. So I see two hands raised. The first member of the public is Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jean. You have 3 minutes. I will allow you to talk and unmute yourself, please.
Good evening, Vice Chair Scharf and Commissioners. My name is Jean Bedord, and I am a longtime Cupertino resident. I am here tonight to urge you to approve this application by KT Urban to create a separate parcel for the senior below market rate housing at Westport. This project was approved by the City Council a year ago, and I'd like to see it under construction. The project itself is unchanged, but the financing is dependent on creating a separate parcel, a legal requirement unrelated to land use. Like so many aspects of managing a large project, the legalese and details need to be satisfied. So I urge you to do your job as a commission to approve this modification to ensure financing goes ahead. There is a tremendous need for senior housing in Cupertino, so the sooner the better for this project. Isn't it time to stop dilly-dallying around and get projects under construction? This is a city which produced only 20 units of housing in 2020, of which 19 were ADUs. It's actual production of housing that counts, not entitlement. Why present roadblocks to builders who are actually ready to break ground? I urge you to unanimously approve this application tonight so residents can finally see construction underway, not a dead shopping center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Next, we have Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So I guess I just want to add, Vice Chair Sharp, you said you were a little disappointed that the applicant and staff didn't know this already. I have to say that I'm more than a little disappointed. And if someone wants to blame the city for delaying this, if the applicant didn't even know what had to be done, it's not correct to blame the city for having to go through this. I'm also a little concerned. I think you said that you had outside counsel confidential response to your questions. And I don't understand why that's a confidential response, why the public isn't able to know what the response was. But I guess that's a discussion for another time, but it's a little odd. And if you can explain that now, that'd be good. And I guess at this point, that's it. I'm still concerned about, and maybe I missed something in the presentation, about the internal bike, not necessarily path, but access for bikes that all the speakers, when this first came up and was approved, this project, the approved project, were concerned about. And there wasn't a clear answer to me from the applicant that that's still happening. And I feel like there hasn't been a lot more input about that. So I'm just hoping that what was spoken about is really happening. If I missed it in the staff presentation, I'm sorry. And I'm not talking about on the south side of Stevens Creek. I'm talking about the internal pathway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, we'll get Public Works in a few minutes to talk about that. Next, we have Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. This is Jennifer Griffin, and I just let me first make a comment. We need retail so bad in this city. There is no place to shop, 0 places. We're losing the little Target. I'm going to wind up having to shop in the new Target in Scotts Valley, which is going in where the Kmart was. I mean, that is a disgrace that we can't even, I know we have one Target in town, but I'm having to shop at Capitola Mall. I mean, they have a Macy's there. We have Scotts Valley is right on in my mind that they're putting in a big Target there. But Cupertino's shopping is a complete disgrace. I know we need senior housing, but I really, really am very, very upset that we don't have more retail at the Oaks. Look at the convenience factor. You have people from Los Altos. I mean, my family's been shopping there for probably close to 40, 50 years. It's right across from Dianza. Dianza's coming back full bore in the fall. And we're putting in housing. Okay, that's great. That's fine. But I'm really, really upset about losing the potential for retail. Also, I'm not real happy about getting 3 parcels out of this property. This has been going on since 2008 when somebody first tried to redevelop the Oak Shopping Center. They were talking about having multiple lots then. And I'm very, very wary about this. I really also, too, I'm not real happy about them giving away the lot that has the BMR housing on it to someone else, to another group. Give it to Cupertino or keep it by the owner. I'm really getting to the point where these housing bills have so completely corrupted what is anything that we think of for building housing. I probably know far too much about this stuff, but I'm very suspicious. And I really, really hope that this project comes to fruition. But if it doesn't, it's just going to be like 2008 over and over again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And that is all the members of the public that wish to comment. I'm looking at the panelists to see if anyone wishes to speak. All right, so let's bring it back to the commission.
Vice Chair Scharf.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Trissini.
Applicant. I did want to introduce myself to the commission. Some of the members of the commission were not present at the last hearing. I believe that Gian Mateer did a very good job on the overview, but I did want to make sure that the commission understood that the applicant was available to answer any questions along with the affordable housing provider, Mike Kelly with Pacific Companies. I also have with me this evening the civil engineer, Mark Falco, to give the commission a very brief overview of exactly what the minor modification is providing. So if you would allow me, I'd like to have Mark Falco give a
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Vice Chair Scharf, Commissioners, I'd just give you a really quick overview of the changes to the plan. And if I could share my screen real quick. Oops, that might be the wrong screen. It doesn't seem to want to share the right screen. Sorry.
Mark, the image that's coming up is clear to us when you.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're seeing the tentative map and my cursor moving?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the revised tentative map. It's very similar to the existing. I'm going to zoom into the site plan real quick. The cyan line is, as staff presented, is the original approved division line. This was parcel A, this was parcel B. The line that literally we added this line in order to create parcel C, the 0.6 acre for building 2, the affordable building property. That's literally the extent of the change. I do want to, we aren't moving any of the buildings. We're not moving any of the driveways. We're not moving, the utility design is the same. We are keeping the cut through bicycle, this green easement. It shows where the bicycle easement is in order to cut through from Mary to Stevens Creek. In the design, the tentative map showed the easement coming out here. In the design, we have straightened this out a bit to come a little bit more in line. We are also still coordinating with staff and Caltrans to get that protected bike lane in on the north side of Stevens Creek Boulevard, and that this dark blue line is the extent of the changes to the project, and there really isn't anything else that's changing. So and I just wanted to take a few minutes and explain that, and that's the end of my presentation. Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, we can bring it back to the commissioners. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. I see Mooney. Go ahead, Mooney.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the developer and my predecessor, the previous planning commission, as well as the council members for approving such a wonderful project at this site. This is a much more needed housing project. So I really appreciate after multiple attempts coming up with a project that serves the community and works for developer, and and it's a great project, no doubt. So I'd like to thank everyone involved in that decision and approval. So thank you. Coming to the topic of change, my perception is there are two changes, right? So one is the second parcel is getting parcel B, I think, is being split into B and C, right? So I understand the upside, which is it allows for the financing and all that stuff, right? I want to understand if there is any downside at all, right? If there is any downside? I want to hear from the staff if there is any downside to doing it. The reason I'm asking this is I don't want to repeat of, this is nothing to do with, this developer or this development. From the past, we had some bad experience from other developments where promised, senior housing was not built and stuff like that. So I want to see, that thing is always weighing in our minds in terms of, any changes, we are being careful. So I want to understand, if there is any downside at all for this, splitting this into a separate parcel. Could staff
Okay.
answer that?
Can staff respond to that?
I could speak for planning, and then I see Chad lighting up, so he can probably speak for public works. In terms of a downside, that's a tough question to ask. I think it's relative to how you see it. If the question you're trying to get at, can this be 3 parcels and then not have affordable development on this site? I think that's what you're getting to, and that was a concern that was shared by prior planning commissioners as well as prior council members. And so what the city had done was put together conditions that would assure concurrent development of the BMR and the market rate housing portions. This, regardless of how many parcels are on the site, whether it's 2 or 3, it's still considered one development. And so you can't finalize all the townhomes and row houses until you get a certificate of occupancy or certain other triggers on the BMR portion as well, and vice versa too. We also want to make sure that there are that missing middle housing on the site and not just the BMR. So we have triggers for that as well too. So one of the triggers in that case is that, well, you can't finalize the BMR building without having 10 of the row house townhomes completed and ready for occupancy. So there's still that condition and conditions like that tying this development together, whether it's 2 parcels or 3 parcels. So and that was these were preemptive measures that prior council members, current council members actually, and the vice chair himself, thought about ahead of time and said, we want to make sure that this thing gets developed as proposed, or at least something extremely similar to that. And so these were the triggers that were set in place.
Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to point out that what transpired at Main Street, that was authorized by a previous council that allowed it was actually market rate senior housing to not be built and market rate all ages housing to be built instead. And, the council has the power to do that if they wish. And hopefully that will not happen. But it's not really up to us here.
Thank you. No, thanks for the clarification. But that's what is weighing in my mind, right? So is there any downside at all where this BMR housing would never get built, right? When the rest of the project moves ahead, right? So if I heard you correct, you're saying the occupancy certificate will not be issued for the townhomes and the market rate housing, unless these units get built. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That the one is that what the condition literally reads is that the city will issue a certificate of occupancy or undertake final inspection of the 66 row house townhouse units. The affordable housing let me put the condition up on the screen really quick.
Okay, and John, I'll point out the density bonus actually depends on the affordable housing as well.
That's right. That's right as well too. So what it says over here is this is verbatim what the concurrent development of BMR and market rate housing says. So it's all senior BMR units must have received a certificate of occupancy or final inspection, or the project shall have reached the affordable senior housing milestone before the city will issue a C of O or undertakes final inspection of the 66 row house townhouse units. The affordable senior housing milestones means the time at which the following conditions A plus B have occurred or condition C has occurred. A is developer has transferred the parcel on which the senior BMR housing will be constructed to an affordable housing developer or affiliate. This is what we had talked about earlier in the presentation, that transfer of parcel. Plus B, the affordable housing developer has closed on its construction financing. Or independently C, the developer has provided evidence of a completion guarantee, which may be a performance bond to the city in a form and amount reasonably acceptable to the city. So basically means that that bond would ensure that this gets built. So the bond could be whatever the equivalent cost to build that building would be.
So stay there. So it says, A plus B have occurred or C occurred, right? So let's say the A is what we are talking about here, transferring this parcel to a affordable construction unit, right?
Yeah.
B, the affordable housing developer has closed on its construction financing. So what if they close the construction financing but they don't build? Because C doesn't have to happen, right? If A and B happens, that's good enough to issue the permit, right? So what if B happens but the construction doesn't continue?
Well, then they can't complete the rest of the project. That's what happens. So these are all that's the row house townhome portion cannot be finished. It cannot be certified. At least the latter third cannot be certified for occupancy.
No, the C, if C occurs, no issue, right? Because there is a completion bond and guarantee and all that.
Absolutely.
Right? But I get the impression that if A and B occurs, that's good enough to issue the occupancy permits for those units.
Sure.
That's the way I'm reading it.
Yes.
So if that's good enough to issue occupancy permits, then A is what we are talking about here. B occurs where they financed it but did not proceed with the construction.
Right.
And we end up in a situation where we don't have the BMR housing.
Right. And then the what happens that the delta between the 66th townhome and the 88 townhome is that that difference does not get certificates of occupancy. So that's the trigger.
Okay, so the delta won't get the occupancy, but the other units will get the occupancy.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to Commissioner Saxena?
I have the second question, right? So
Okay, go ahead.
The other change, what is the change to the bike lane construction? Because I got the impression that, from the city staff's presentation that there is a change to the commitment made to build the bike lane. And then from Mark, I heard, there is no change to the bike lane commitment.
Correct. What Mr. Falgo was referring to was, and Mr. Falgo was the engineer for Mr. Tursini, was that the bike lane, the dedicated bike lane on the north side of Stevens Creek Boulevard, adjacent to the project site, still going to be built out in coordination with Caltrans and city staff. But the bike lane on the original VTM, that's Tentative Map, would not be built out as originally designed because the traffic impacts the traffic impacts will not. Let me rewind a little bit. So the city typically can impose a transportation impact fees for new development if they trigger further traffic impacts. Now, all the traffic studies, there's 3 of them that were attached to a staff report. The first 2 were part of the EIR. The last one was a revised one submitted earlier this year. All 3 of them showed that there would actually be a negative traffic impact, meaning negative that there's less traffic generated from this proposed development than the Oaks would be if it was 85% occupied. So in that case, the city does not have the ability to charge the TIF. Thus, as the roadway improvements on the southern end were in lieu of the fees, we couldn't require those either. So that's why those were actually removed from this consideration.
So do you have a drawing that you can put up and show us, what is that, that was approved that's not going to happen?
I could give me a few minutes.
Well, I mean,
you can move on to others. You can come back.
I mean, Mooney, what's not happening is the eastbound bike lane on the south side of Stevens Creek. What is happening is the westbound bike lane on the north side of Stevens Creek, although I'm unclear if the if the studies show that there's a negative traffic impact. I guess we should be glad we're still getting the westbound bike lane on the north side.
So the westbound would be, on the De Anza side, right?
No, the westbound is on the Oak side,
On the north side of Stevens
north
Creek
side
Boulevard.
of Stevens Creek,
Yeah,
heading west.
Yeah. The north side is on the Mary Avenue bike lane, right? That's a project that was approved by the Bike Commission last year, if I remember correctly.
No.
I can explain a little better. This is the westbound bike lanes on Stevens Creek. Basically, on the north side of Stevens Creek along the project frontage are still being constructed with this project. It is the eastbound bike lanes on the south side of Stevens Creek adjacent to De Anza College that have been removed from this project. And the reason we were requesting those improvements originally was we were going to offset the TIF fee based on those improvements so that we could have fully improved bike lanes in that area. Based on the latest assessment of the TIF fee, there's actually a negative PM peak trip count, which means we can't require a TIF fee, and thus this offset of having improvements done as opposed to the fee is non-existent.
Okay.
Does that explain it?
Yeah. So that means,
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So that means, the developer doesn't have to pay any fees to build the bike lane on the De Anza side. City could still build it. Is that right?
Correct. That is correct. And the city is actually planning to still build that with our Stevens Creek bike lane project.
Okay. It's just that, the developer doesn't have to pay for anything.
That is correct.
That segment of the, okay, I got it. Thanks.
Correct. All right, can we move on now? Vikram, you have your hand raised next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharf, and thank you everybody for talking about the project. I had a few questions. First of all, this is for getting some credits for building the BMR housing, right? I just wanted to confirm that it's not tied to this building, but financing the construction. Is it for financing, or is it some like federal credits or state credits, or what exactly are we talking about here?
So, and again, the applicants here in the applicants.
Right, go ahead, Mark. You can talk about that.
I'd like to introduce Mike Kelly, the Affordable Housing Builder Pacific Companies. Mike, you answer the question of the commissioner, please.
The mic's on the call.
You may be muted, Mike. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh yeah, I see him down there. I can't unmute him. He's not muted. Yeah, he will have to unmute himself. It doesn't show him as muted, actually. Perhaps he stepped away or something.
He may have. I can address the question to
Okay.
Sure.
Pacific Company has secured state tax increment financing. In addition to that, they have also secured financing for the entire project. It required a separate parcel to secure that financing. That is part of the requirements of the affordable housing builder.
Okay, so so it's primarily determined by how the convention on affordable housing financing works. Okay, cool. Thank you. I think the second question is more for the city in general and the planning. That do we have guidelines for developers who are developing and who are trying to navigate the labyrinth of laws on like what is the standard practice? Or maybe Mr. Kelly can even talk about it. Do they publish standard practices? Because ideally we would have wanted to avoid the situation where we are stuck right now. So it's a more general question, but maybe the city could answer a little bit more about how this works and what are the guidelines we expect, and like how do we support developers in getting things done fast here?
Sure, and I could attempt to answer that from processing perspective from staff. You know, we take in and we base our judgments much on what is provided to us by the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
The applicant sees, we trust that the applicant knows that how to finance a project, and knows that, do they need another parcel or not to finance it or whatnot. I'm not an expert on TCAC and whatever else, so it's still a learning experience for me as much as it is for commissioners as well. But these things do happen, and I believe that because of the partner that was chosen, and any partner, I mean, if this is Bridge Housing or some other housing group that's more familiar with, Charities Housing, for example, they would be under the same predicament too, that they couldn't get the financing for this development if they were going to build themselves, unless they had separate title of that portion of the development. What I've learned is that if a financing mechanism or a financier was to place some type of lien or hold on this portion of development, they would consider it something like a illegal subdivision. So that would violate a ton of different subdivision map act laws and whatnot. So,
Yeah, and because I have heard many people talk about the fact that the BMR units should be very similar to the other units, and they should be dispersed in the development in a manner where they don't stand out. But from what we're hearing right now, like in terms of having a clear, separate parcel for the BMR units, those two requirements seem to be in conflict with each other. So I'm a bit confused.
Sure, and at the council hearing last year, that was given to the applicant as a concession, an incentive to not have to disperse them throughout the development.
Okay.
However, the BMR units have to be similar in design and bedroom count in terms of the types of units as building one. So that was part of the original approval, which is not being proposed.
Okay. So if we hadn't given the concession, then this would not have been an issue at all, because they would have to.
Yeah, if that concession or incentive was not given, you would have had to have, potentially a good percentage of the townhome row houses be considered BMR themselves.
And in that case, because they're dispersed within the market rate units, they wouldn't be eligible for the special incentives and financing, which Katie Urban is trying to sort of arrange right now.
Correct. My understanding of TCAC, which is a tax credit, is that it has to be a separate, yes. To be eligible for the finance, it has to be a separate entity.
Yeah, I think that clarifies things. Thank you.
It's unmuted now, but I think he will address the project as we have proposed are for senior, affordable, and Mike Kelly with the Pacific Company is going to be building the 48 units for seniors. So that's, Mike, if you can address that quickly.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I just wanted to, let you folks know that, we did receive our financing from the TCAC, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee. It's a very, very competitive process. And so we're able to receive an official award from them to the tune of $20 million for this project. So we are ready to move forward. We have our debt and our equity already aligned. The only thing that we need really are two things. We just need a parcel created, because debt and equity will not invest in the project. We've done over 150 of these projects, and in no circumstances whatsoever have we done a deal without a single parcel, because a single asset entity is required both by debt, equity, as well as the Tax Credit Allocation Committee. So the only two things we really need to move forward is a separate parcel and our building permits. And, we were confident enough in our situation where we started that process about 2 months ago, just to give staff time so we don't jam everybody up and, move forward at a velocity that makes sense for everybody. So we are very confident that this project can become a reality. And, and again, the only two things we need is, parcel and building permits. I'd also add that, one of the virtues of the project that is moving forward is the level of income targeting that's taken place. It is substantially deeper than that is required from KT Urban and their development agreement. I believe it's like 60% at 40% AMI and 40% at 50% AMI, something like that. I'm close, but what we're offering is a substantial number of 30% AMI units, 40% AMI units, 50% AMI units, and 60% AMI units. And from the market study that we've produced, it's required for the Tax Credit Allocation Committee, the market just in Cupertino alone would fill the project 20 times over, just to give you an idea of what the demand for that project. So we are very accomplished developers. We have a good number of projects there in the Bay Area. We're super excited to be working with KT Urban and the city of Cupertino because you folks will be partners in the project as well. And you guys will have oversight in the operations as well. So anyway, I just wanted to, let you know that I'm here to answer any additional questions you have, and we're definitely ready to move forward.
Great, and congratulations on getting that TCAC financing. I know how incredibly competitive that is, and so that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all from me.
And we're all looking forward to the permits being issued and construction starting. All these projects tend to take way too long to move through. Was there anyone else? I don't see any other hand raised from the panelists. Kapil. Oh, there you go. Okay, go ahead, Kapil. Kapil, did you have anything?
Yeah, I have a small question here. Is that the tax credit which is obtained by this company that is based on the area or is based on the number of units? I heard 48 units or something like that for BMR, and that must be covered in a certain area, right? So that tax credit is kind of depends upon the area in which those units are constructed, or is it based on the number of units alone? No area constraints.
I'll let Mike or Mark respond to that question.
That is for the parcel C I'm talking about.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So I just want to make sure I'm capturing the question correctly. So is the tax credits based on the number of units? Is that the question?
Yeah. Yes, and or is it based on the square footage of the parcel allocated for that?
I see. So it's the former. It's based on the number of units and the construction costs in relation to producing those number of units. So more technically, it's related to your eligible basis. So if we were doing, so it's based on eligible basis, and there's a calculation that orients around your eligible basis.
But it doesn't compromise on the units to maximize them, right? I mean, the thing is that it seems like, as you said, number of units more than number of units entitles you more of a tax credit. So if you, what about the individual unit size? Does it has any bearing on the minimum standard on that?
It does. I mean, I hate to say all of the above, but it kind of is, except for the parcel size. So it contemplates the number of units. It contemplates the costs associated with each of those units. And this project here, really is it's a very expensive project because the design criteria is very high. but you also have a parking requirement associated with it. So, we're helping to pay for the parking garages as well. So while it's a small project, the costs are high, or the costs, I should just say, are what they are. And that's the eligible basis. And then there's a calculation that TCAC produces that will tell you how many tax credits you can get based on those costs. So that's, I know it's a little confusing, but they'll say, hey, your total costs are, $37 million, which is the cost on this project. And then once it kind of flows through the calculations, which is, it's almost, it sounds like dolphins clicking a little bit, but in this project here, we are eligible for about $26 million of tax credits. And then it goes through an additional layer of calculations. And, what we do is, and as does every tax credit developer, we sell those credits to investors. In this case, probably like, say, a U.S. bank will buy those credits and then in exchange for cash that goes directly into the project. So after all is said and done, and I'm hoping I'm answering your question here, but the project cost here is about $37 million. The eligible tax credits is about $26 million. Then after it flows through a few different paginations, we will receive about $20 million in actual cash that goes directly into the project. And then there's a bunch of oversight that comes with that. The IRS is involved. The tax credit investor, they don't get the tax credits, right out of the chute. They have to stay in the deal. It's not like they just get their credits and walk away. They're in it for 15 years. The state is involved, tax credit allocation committee, they're in it for all 55 years. You guys have oversight. So, I'm hoping that answers your question, but to get into the way it's specifically calculated, it is a little bit nuanced, but I'm hoping I'm answering your question accurately directly.
Yeah, thank you very much. It does. The only thing that my concern was that because of the tax credit amount involved, it doesn't compromise the BMR units to maximize them per unit size, basically. So that was there is as you said, there is some oversight on the dimensions of those units which are being constructed to gain the tax credit. Okay, thanks. The other question I had was related to the north side bike lane, which you said you are negotiating with the Caltrain. So what kind of negotiation is required for with Caltrain for that lane, and why it is not yet decided?
I can't discuss. I can't talk about the timing. I think Chad could probably discuss it better. But the Caltrans is Stevens Creek Boulevard is, at least that portion of it is within the Caltrans jurisdiction, particularly so.
Okay.
So any design is not based upon the city; it's about coordinating with them. And anytime you get two different government agencies trying to help with the design of a road, that is a little bit time consuming, and it's sometimes it comes out.
And I think the entrance to a state highway is involved there as well.
Hence Caltrans
85, which is Caltrans.
Yeah.
So Mike, I was calculating. So it sounds like the average cost of these BMR units are $771,000 each. If it's 48 units and $37 million. I don't remember what the size of these are. Are these a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms? Are they all 1 bedrooms? Are there studios?
Yeah, that's correct. So your total development cost is accurate. That is what they are on a per unit basis. And it's a mix of studios and ones. And the average square footage for the studios is, I think we have 538 feet, and then the ones are about 610 feet. Oh, I'm sorry, we have some twos as well, and those are about 850 square feet.
I see. Yeah, these are larger than what we got over at I forget the name of it on Stevens Creek, the Veranda. So Yeah, it's hard to say it's a bargain at 770,000, but
Yeah.
these are at least
Yeah.
larger than the veranda, which was all studios and had about an equivalent cost. So that I think because it's a larger number, there's some economy of scale there. So great. If there's no more questions from commissioners, I would like to make a motion that we consider the evidence and we approve the vesting tentative map TM 2021-002 to create a separate parcel for the age-restricted senior BMR building. And the city approval would be a vesting tentative map TM 2021-002 for KT Urban, assessor parcel number 326-27042 and 043. So is there a second?
Vice Chair, this is the Deputy City Chair. Yeah, I have a question for you. I had the pleasure of sitting in on the City Council meetings last week, and I noticed that they simply say, I move to adopt the staff recommended resolution, just to avoid any conflict between what you're saying. And
okay, that's fine. All right,
Okay.
I'll say that. I move to approve the staff recommended resolution. Let's see. Is that enough or what?
I'll second it.
Okay.
That's enough.
All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Matipatla,
Yes.
Commissioner Saxena,
Yes.
Commissioner Kapil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sharf,
Yes.
401.
Great. Okay. Very good. Let's get that built. Now we are on to, there's no old business or new business. Does anyone have any staff or commission report? Are there any staff or commission reports? How about staff first?
None from us.
Okay. Any commissioners want to give any reports? Okay, I'll give a short one. I have been attending most of the Cali meetings, a lot of discussion on the various housing bills that are coming up before the state legislature, specifically SB 9 and SB 10 are the ones that are great concern to Cupertino and most cities throughout California. And we will see what happens with those. So if there's nothing else for the future agenda, the staff will take care of that. I've discussed that with them at our previous agenda setting meeting since Commissioner Wong was not going to be here today. And I think that's it. So let's adjourn. Thank you, everybody. And good night.
Good night.